Hey, everyone, friends and family, welcome back to Let's Talk Herps. I'm Stephen Lewis, and today we have a couple of amazing guests. We have Zoe, Renee, and Jackson Byars. Zoe and Jackson are experts in wildlife husbandry, venomous snake care, and anti-venom protocols. So today we're all going to dive deep into the world of venomous snake keeping and discuss how to be a responsible keeper. But first, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pain in the butt to get scheduled, mostly due to my end. So thank you so much for accommodating and joining us today. How are you?
Doing great, doing great.
We're
Thanks
doing
for the
great. Thank you
introduction.
for that really kind, probably overly kind introduction.
No, it's all well deserved, and anyone who is, and that's not even all of it either. So I don't need to go on and embarrass you guys, but anyone who interacts with you guys for real knows that already. So pat yourselves on the back when we get off this call. You guys have such and you do have an impressive background in wildlife husbandry and venomous snakes. If you guys could share a little bit about your journey, what got you interested in working with these animals, and what are you working with currently?
How about you start?
So, funny enough, we both started with animals when we were young. I started mostly with herps and with snakes, and then I went to college at A&M, Texas A&M.
And
Um,
your parent, like his mom got a degree. She was like studying snakes for her PhD.
that's true. Yeah, I was
Hmm.
helping my mom with her thesis on African house snakes when I was 8.
When you were 8, what
Yes.
what sort of help does a 8-year-old apply?
I would help take sperm samples. So
Okay, that's a more in-depth answer than I thought you were going to say. So that's really
help take
I think
care of
you
the
were you
snakes.
regularly were in the lab with her,
Yeah.
and like her superiors thought it was great, like him cleaning stuff and moving the snakes and interacting with them, counting the eggs, all that kind of stuff.
that's great that you could. She's lucky, but that's so nice too that you get to be second generation, sort of herps in your family.
Yes.
Was it the same for you, Zoe?
My family was more into mammals, but my dad did keep crocodilians when I was growing up. So
Yeah,
when I was 8, I was being taught how to drag a 4-foot crocodile out of the water and get it on land. So, I didn't have a lot of reptile experience, but I did have a lot of croc, turtle, and tortoise experience.
that's amazing. No, I mean, from someone I'm into reptiles, I love them. That is not my experience growing up. That is not anyone I know's experience growing up. So that's really awesome. So like, it's like, no, it's not snakes and it's not cobras, but it's definitely on the path. And I think it's. Did you guys always think that this was where you would end up?
But, I mean, when you were little, didn't you constantly talk about owning a zoo?
I always did want to. Never thought it would happen.
I think
Hmm.
we went to visit his hometown recently, and his hairdresser, who did his hair when he was little, actually said, "You're the only person I know who said they were going to do this when they were like 8 and 4 and 5 and blah blah blah, and they actually did it." um,
It's
and then
rare.
I think I made Zoe's zoo, which I still go by that on social media,
Mhm.
even though the Fauna Learning Center is our actual facility. I made that when I was like 13.
That's awesome. And it's great that you guys can stick with it too, because like your hairdresser says, and your hairdresser is, like the rest of us working stiffs, right? Like, we sometimes we get into it. I'm when I started when I was younger, it was definitely not jobs that I wanted, because I just needed to work. Uh,
Of course.
I think it takes a lot of a very specific type of person and a lot of direction and specific energy to actually get into your field and what you had a goal to get into right from the beginning, which is why your hairdresser brought that up to you, because it's not. Um, Basically, what I want to make sure that you guys understand is that there's something wrong. You're a little bit different. It's okay.
That's fair.
No, it's awesome. It's awesome, and I think a lot of people watching this, snake or reptile involved at all, would be jealous a little bit of that. So I hope you guys get to enjoy that when you can. You guys, let's jump back into the topic at hand. Pertaining to venomous snakes, what would you suggest for venomous keepers to do who are interested in expanding their safety protocols or just getting started? I know that's there's like no segue there whatsoever to talk about what you guys were doing, but something that we talked about a lot offline or off camera was the exact topics, things that have been going on, and just wanted to know. Start right at the most important thing, which is safety and safety protocols.
I always frame it with three questions, like how can we be more safe for ourselves, more safe for the community, and then more safe for the animals we're keeping. And then when you kind of like deep dive into each of those categories, you end up eventually covering everything. But a great start for Venomous is essentially having an emergency action plan, and then all the steps to prepare you to make sure you don't have those emergencies. So, you know, essentially having an escape-proof room, having a plan for if you get bit, having a secondary plan for if that venomous snake escapes that cage after that, you know, and
making sure it's a secure room.
Yeah.
So what is and I'll stop at that because that was one of the first points you put up. But what does a secure escape-proof room look like?
So, I'll say what we do, which we are a bit more dramatic because we have a dramatically sized collection with snakes that are heavy hitting. But for us, it's a custom building with double door entries, which is like an airlock entry. When you enter the porch to the venomous side of the building, there's an exterior door that you need a key code or a fingerprint to get inside of. And that enters you into another very small room that has another exterior door, so waterproof door, like there's no gaps, that you need, again, a fingerprint or a key code, which is separate from the first key code. And then once you get inside that room, there is a little safe, and all the keys to the enclosures are inside that safe, which you need the key for, and then the enclosures themselves are also locked. The ventilation in the building, like the AC mini split, is custom so that a snake cannot enter or exit through that. The plumbing is custom so that a snake cannot enter or exit through that. The electrical is custom so that a snake cannot enter or exit through that. And underneath all of the trim on the walls, we went around with like caulk and silicone. And so everywhere the floor meets the wall is completely sealed. And then we put wood over it and like make the beautiful trim so it looks like a house. And basically, like, just there's no crack, crevice, anything. There's no easy way in or out of the building unless you're a human being with, you know, opposable thumbs.
And for somebody that doesn't own a zoo,
yeah, go ahead.
What I would do is, you know, when the room's empty, walk around the entire perimeter and try sticking your finger in any little crack or crevice, because especially if you have carpet, sometimes you can kind of get your finger up under there and into the wall even. So make sure that there's none of that. And make sure
screens on your windows.
Screens on windows, on ventilation.
Screens underneath your AC ducts. Like like I could fit 3 fingers in through my AC duct, so a cobra can fit through there. There needs to be something underneath there, whether that's hardware cloth or mesh.
Something to go underneath your door.
Yeah, you need a door
not
sweep.
Full building, so like a sweep, and a good one, because a lot of them are not great.
The rubber ones are not like, you can, if your hand can force through it, that's too dangerous, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of snakes are, some of the, especially the larger ones, like a large forest cobra or king cobra, they're very strong animals. They can push through these things.
So making sure any drain has like a drain cover on it.
Because they'll go through pipes. They go through air conditioning. Anyone who's seen Die Hard knows that you can get into any room in the building once you're in the air ducts. Well, that's good to know. I wish. As you're mentioning that, I'm looking at like every single red flag. I mean, I don't keep anything that's going to kill anyone when it gets loose. But I did. I lost a young snake a few years back, and it was everything that you guys mentioned. And that's the worst. It's the absolute worst. He went through, or she went through, a plastic hinge. So the cage was secure, but the hinge that the lid actually opened up on was able to flex enough. I know because that's the only place I could get my finger through. But yeah, I was going around, and I started to realize that, oh my God, the snake can get under the carpet in this room. Like in several places, it could get into the corner, and it's just, you don't realize until you're at their level. And especially like this room is full of stuff. You really have to get it empty. So that was it. That was interesting. Thank you so much. Let's So we're talking, you've got the bite protocols, the escape proof room, and then we were asking, what is someone to do if they wanted to get those started. So is that kind of the whole list, or do you guys make phone calls ahead of time to hospitals or anything like that?
Oh, yes. Are you talking about like a relationship in case you were to take a bite? Um,
Possibly, yeah, like anything, yeah.
so if you were to go through our group, the anti-venom support group, and like get those permits to get anti-venom, that actually they go through that whole thing in your emergency action plan. You have to have a local hospital that you sign for, basically saying this is this hospital that I'm going to go to if I'm envenomated, and it's this far away from me, and this is what I keep, so that's a reasonable distance. So that's part of why we really encourage even keepers that don't need anti-venom, like let's say they only keep native snakes, to still come join the anti-venom support group, because there's a real wealth of knowledge around just general safety even outside of the medication.
Hmm,
So if you're being super prepared, contacting your local hospital is actually pretty important, because you can see what kinds of things they would require of you and need, and establish some sort of a relationship, preferably with the director, because they're going to be able to put something in the system.
gotcha. And now the excuse me, bad timing. So the this emergency action plan, that's something that it sounds like it's really to be used, one, for you to kind of know about, but more importantly, in case you're incapacitated, for someone else to be able to pick it up and know one, two, three exactly what to do.
Yeah, exactly. It's supposed to be written in layman's terms so that anyone who sees it would know exactly what to do.
Gotcha. Thank you. Yeah, so moving past that, in the past, there have been incidents where keepers were bitten by non-native venomous snakes, meaning their pets. Can you walk us through why things like recklessly handling venomous snakes, especially non-natives, in captivity, is an even greater risk than, say, native snakes?
Uh,
Yeah, sure. So, what you're talking about, of course, is free handling, right?
Yeah, free, exactly
And
right. Yeah, right. When I say reckless, yeah.
or like overall reckless handling, because there's a lot of people that attempt to handle in a non like controversial manner, right? And
Mm.
they will still handle incredibly poorly.
and
Hmm.
also like there's different levels to free handling, so to speak. So like you can hook and tail, and you have a hand on the snake.
And hooking and tailing, some people will call that free handling, but
Hmm.
that's that in our like profession, that's not truly considered free handling. Hooking and tailing is done by AZA facilities and everything. So
Right.
I know there's probably people watching this that don't necessarily know what falls under what terminology, but
Dishwasher.
yeah, basically hooking and tailing can still be done unsafely as well, and so can double hooking be done unsafely as well.
Mm.
Um,
So,
but the people who participate in those types of behaviors, especially like the really reckless showboating behavior, where you'll see like maybe people on YouTube or
putting around their neck.
TikTok and stuff, yeah, like kissing things that can absolutely whip around and kill them, putting
Mm.
gaboons on their face, swimming in the pool with cobras, and so on and so forth. When these people take bites in the United States, they do not have anti-venom at the hospital for you. Non-native anti-venom is not stocked at hospitals at all. So they have to, one, figure out what bit you, because at this point, knowing what bit you is actually necessary to know what the medication is, versus a North American snake. They don't need the snake. They don't even need to know what bit you. They can tell by the symptoms and knowing what's here native.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but a non-native snake we're talking about, it could be from a totally different continent, anywhere in the world, all sorts of different options. Once they know what bit you, hopefully you are able to tell them that. But if you're unconscious, that's a big problem. Or if you
Right.
don't know what you have, because there are people who don't even know the actual names of their snakes. That's very rare, but it happens.
It's a cobra.
Yeah, they have to. We've seen people say that they have one bitis and it's a totally different snake.
Sure.
Thankfully, the antivenom was the same for those two, but still, that's embarrassing to do that. They'll have to source that from a zoo, and they might have to life flight the medication in, put it on a regular plane, have someone drive it, and with North American snakes, time is tissue. With snakes outside of North America, not only is time tissue, but it could very well end your life. It's a lot more serious. So then they have to get the zoo to donate it, bring it there, and then they have to start treatment, and they often have to collaborate with some other doctor because they are not meant to know how to do all of that. So it becomes a much bigger problem. Then the zoos are out of this medication, and their keepers are being paid to work with these dangerous snakes, and they don't have coverage anymore, which is incredibly unfair because they paid the price to get it and did the work to import it. So it creates this like
it's not just a
ripple effect.
money thing with like now the zoos don't have the coverage. If it was something like Australian antivenom, that takes 6 to 9 months to order and get to you.
Why is it so long?
So Australia is very expensive and notoriously irritating to order from for a variety of reasons. They currently, we're hoping that Costa Rica is talking about producing Australian antivenom, but historically CSL is only produced in Australia. Therefore, it's super expensive and hard to get a hold of. It's also liquid, so they do not produce lyophilized. So it has to come in a refrigerated crate with a tracking device and a thermometer. And if at any point something goes wrong on the trip, they will take it back. But even once you get it, they want you to ship their special custom crate back to Australia. Mm-hmm. So the process of getting in touch with them, actually working out the order forms, buying it, and then getting all these other zoos to hopefully go in with you, because we're talking about $13,000 of antivenom because they are very expensive.
Gotcha.
So that you can lower the cost overall for shipping and then get a decent quantity. It's for the orders that we participated in, we're looking at like 6 to 9 months.
Okay.
So it's not even just on your end. Like we had the money ready that entire time.
That was after payment.
That was after payment.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. And it's not just bureaucracy. There's a lot of it, but there's some mechanical issues there as well too, with just even producing a liquid venom. That's not something that even refrigerated, it's not going to last as long as the venom that's gone through the centrifuge and all that. Thank you for that. We're not lawyers or legislators, but we can talk about sort of results of these sort of things. What potential legal issues could arise from keepers taking a bite, especially when it's made public?
We've seen, bites or escapes, all of us. And then shortly after, the area decides to try and all-out ban venomous snakes, and sometimes you even get other animals tossed into the mix of like larger constrictors, like anything over 6 feet or any lizard that gets this big. And the public will oftentimes react in pretty like a fear response, and they want to all-out ban everything rather than just initiate simple, reasonable regulations. Because at that point, they're terrified. They think that this is going to happen to their kids or, their grandmother or blah, blah, blah. And realistically, when you have a bite or an escape, you are alerting the entire, community that there are these incredibly dangerous animals that they have probably historically lived around for this entire time. But now they know, and you made a mistake with them, so it's even worse. We saw that in Texas, not with a bite, but with an escape. The man, I don't know if he was recklessly handling, but he was recklessly keeping. He was not keeping in a secure enclosure. I believe it's something along the lines of he was using a rock to secure the enclosure.
What kind of snake was it?
It was a forest cobra. And we were contacted by the police, so we had some background inside knowledge on that situation. We saw some pictures of the house and the enclosures and whatnot. And that snake went missing. And they believe it got outside. And of course, shortly after, the elected official of that area was the one who introduced the ban where they tried to ban venomous in Texas. So that was a direct correlation, like ABC. It was very clear.
Yeah.
And you could argue that they weren't related, but he literally made a news article on it when it happened and then tried to enact it into law. So.
Well, are you familiar? There's supposedly even already something mentioned by the USDA. Are you guys up on that? I don't want to jump into it because I don't know too much about it, but if you guys do, I'll ask you more about it.
So yes, we for our facility, we have to go through USDA inspections when we open to the public. So we have one that's going to come up here pretty soon when we reopen to the public.
Inspections, yeah.
And they did just add birds, and now they did, which is really interesting because the USDA has publicly stated they had no interest in reptiles this entire time. And now suddenly they say they do have interest in reptiles. I'm not. I'm gonna tread carefully. I don't know if that will be good or very bad because seeing how it's gone with birds, I have friends who are licensed right now that their inspectors are telling them I won't be able to inspect for at least a year because the birds overloaded our plate entirely.
Mm-hmm.
The people who are inspecting they're not familiar with birds, a lot of them, and so I can't imagine them adding reptiles since they haven't received training for this and they don't have the time to do the birds already. I hope that turns into a more reasonable level of investigation or whatever they're trying to do. They didn't release any specifics on what they were hoping for with their requirements, so
Right.
I'm not sure. But typically with USDA, historically, they only care about people who are breeding in large numbers or people who are displaying to the public. So private keepers will not be affected at all.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
So it basically, like, if it's there to fix a problem, they're not even touching the majority of people.
That was sort of my understanding when I saw a few people sharing some sort of giant panic, as people are so quick to do on the internet, which I love. And I didn't get into it too much myself. It sounds like it doesn't apply to me, so I'm gonna say
Yeah,
that.
it should not apply to like.
It might apply to breeders.
Isn't it typically like 4 females or what?
4 or 6 females.
I think the typical rules are 4 to 6 breeding females of a species.
Okay.
And with snakes, most people, I know people like us like to have lots of the same species, but most people, they might have a male and a female or a trio. I think very few people are going to have, 8 of the same species all breeding. Some people,
Yeah.
sure, but we're talking about, probably like 10% of people who keep.
Yeah, exactly. Way fewer than that. Way fewer than that. Because to be honest, I think even the number is something closer to 3 or 5% of the people that keep reptiles even consider breeding. So then, if we're talking about, and I'm in the one pair of this, one pair of that category, and I think the majority of breeders are in that too. So when you're talking about the guys who go to, if you want super dwarf retic, you go to Garrett Hartle, Eric Lee, is the names of these people. If you want a Pituophis, go to, right, like we know who these people are. So it's like I think it's probably so few of us, but it's vocal and they're people we like to. So we always want to make sure that and you guys and the Fauna Learning Center and that everyone is having is well represented, and that the safety and that sort of thing is
I'd be worried about it for the people who are like legitimate breeding facilities or zoos, but at the same time, those people are already used to dealing with USDA, so they know exactly what's coming if that comes.
Yeah, and you know what? At the end of the day, like, we should welcome inspection. Now we can always talk about are they doing it right, and are they qualified to do it? That's an argument worth having, but just saying, no to inspection. But anyways, that's off topic. I was curious about that going on. We were talking about the laws, and that's interesting. But if folks who are interested in keeping venomous snakes, who maybe they don't at the time, but what are some of the key things that they need to know to do so responsibly? So what should they be thinking about before even considering bringing a venomous snake into their home? And one thing that we didn't that I'll ask here extra too is the difference between considering something that's imported and foreign versus something native. It's easy for me. I'm in California. I'm not allowed to own any. I'm barely allowed to own rattlesnakes. If they live in California and they're not protected, and I have my fishing license and I'm within the bag limit, but like other folks can choose. So I'm sure if you're interested in venomous, you're probably in a place where you can actually keep them. So I did want to explore that too, between non-native versus native.
The first thing I tell anybody that's like just wanting to look into owning venomous, they don't do it yet, is look at bite pictures. Because as kind of gory and gnarly as it is, it might give you like that, oh, this is what I'm getting into, and I need to take it seriously. Yeah. It's not trying to, scare people away. It's just trying to make them to be realistic understand what's happening.
Yeah.
Well, imagine if sorry, jump in, but yeah, absolutely. Like, imagine if someone said, "Hey, do you know what this snake can do?" And I said, "No, not really."
Well, yeah. We've encountered people who say that
for sure.
we've encountered people who are keeping and love their animals, but they didn't realize it could kill them. Like they didn't understand. And I think kind of where all of that goes back to is having a proper mentor, right? Like having a mentor who is a good example kind of walks you through all of that. So they're going to go over, um, can you ethically keep animals like this? Like, do you have the space and the finances required? Do you have the time required? Because it's not, you can't ask your brother or sister or roommate to take care of this animal for you.
No.
Realistically, you cannot skimp on resources that cost money. You need the best caging and the proper handling tools and a veterinarian and etc. And then, like, are you mobile enough? Are you healthy enough to take care of it? Like, do you happen to suffer from any extreme health issues that a bite that's not serious could kill you? Like, do you have any pre-existing conditions? Or do you happen to have like a mobility issue where you're not able to react quickly? Do you have something where you might faint or have a seizure? Or like, there's just a lot of those kind of things. And then like once you get past all of that, do you like all the typical reptile things? Do you have the ability to do that for 20 years too? You know, do you have someone who is able to take over these animals if that goes south? So with Venomous, it's just like basically everything with reptiles, but times 10. You have all this extra stuff. What is there anything else that you can think of? Like I feel like they go over all those kind of things in mentorship outside of mentorship though.
Yeah, it's just doing it responsibly from the beginning, making sure that you have secure enclosures and you're not keeping in fish tanks with rocks on the lids.
And that you like get enough. Not everyone unfortunately has a mentor, which really, really sucks. But most people, you can find someone near you to teach you, or at least basic handling classes. Because before you bring the snakes home, it's really best to be experienced enough that you feel safe working with them. If you are scared of what you keep, you should not be keeping it. Like a healthy respect is one thing, but fear of the animal is going to lead to poor husbandry.
Right.
Because you know, if something goes wrong and you're at a mentor's house or a mentor's facility, you can step back and they can come take over. You're at your own place, you're that person.
You are the backup.
Right. Yeah, I remember, you know, it's not like I have the alternative where I have someone else to watch, but it's, in some cases when, like if a snake's going down a drain, for instance, or at a tight spot that you cannot let them go down because you will lose your snake or something like, you know, and you might have to grab it hard or pull or yank. I work with animals professionally that may be stray and stuff like that too. And sometimes, listen, you're the last line. Are you able to do that with a venomous animal? Easy for me with rattlesnake because, you know, I have a grabber and they're a rattlesnake. But that's something to consider. Do you recommend people stick with native, or is that maybe less of a consideration if they're following the same sort of procedures of finding a mentor to work with and learn about it first?
I think it's so hard. We got a really, really unique level of mentorship compared to most people. So like, you know, people who have a truly extensive mentorship, I think you can have a wider array of options to start with. But if you are more on your own and you do not have the ability to work with a lot or for a long time, I would personally recommend sticking with native. Like my thing would be to get a copperhead. That would be my suggestion. There's the Venom interviews are a great thing to watch too for people who are interested in owning.
How do they find the Venom interviews?
They
were for sale a long time
I think
ago.
they stopped making last copies though. Basically, you could ask around on different venomous groups. People are willing to ship it to you, and then you can ship it back to them. I have one. You know, if I know someone, I'm happy to let them borrow it and bring it back.
Is it a DVD or?
Yeah, it's a DVD.
Yeah. Back in the olden days.
I don't think they made anything virtual, honestly. But there's also a really good, extensive, lengthy post, kind of like what's the best first venomous snake on the Venomous Reptile Keeper Mentorship group, which is the best venomous group, by the way. It's like the OG group.
What's it again, so that people, now that they know to listen to it, can actually go to it?
The Venomous Reptile Keeper Mentorship Group. And
Venomous Reptile Keeper Mentorship Group.
Thomas runs that with some other people, and you know he's an OG, incredibly knowledgeable man. And him and other people have made some posts basically that are pinned, and it's like, what's the best for snake? And they kind of go over that you need something that's easy to manage, and it's something that is not going to kill you if it goes wrong, you know? And so for me, when we've only trained like 3 people, we always have them working with very easy, laid back native species once they've already came out a few times and we know they're not crazy. Because there's always that 1 or 2 days where we don't let anyone touch anything because we need to make sure that you're not a nutcase. You're not gonna like stick your hand in randomly after you've listened to all this.
Yeah. No, I train people for a living, and it's funny when sometimes what you say and what they say they understand too. What they look you dead in the eyes and say they know, and then turn around and stick their hand in a cage or something. You know,
it's scary because you're liable when you're in there doing it like that. So, and, I mean, and your animal's life is at risk if it goes wrong as well.
What is your advice for keepers if the worst does happen? So if they're bitten by their own venomous snake, what should they do and not do before help arrives?
So that's where having the emergency action plan and the bite protocol really comes in handy. Obviously, do your very best to secure the snake, whether that be getting it back into the container, or if you really trust your room, making sure that the room's locked and no one else can go in there. Obviously, in a container or enclosure is ideal.
Yeah.
And then it's really going to be dependent on the snake, but getting to the hospital is the most important thing. If you do happen to stop your own antivenom, obviously bring the appropriate antivenom with you.
And if you've gone through that whole process, you'll have what's called a go bag, and it's basically every single thing you would need packed, and then you just pop your antivenom into that bag and go.
So, but yeah, no, just get to the hospital.
Yeah. And the protocols, we're working on some with how do you pronounce it?
Basically, Spia Snakebite Foundation.
Yes, please be a snakebite foundation. I say it wrong every time.
That's a hard one.
I'm super dyslexic. But we're working on some protocols. We've been working on them for about a year with the doctors, and they're going to be released for free to the public, so anyone will have access, and they will not cost money.
That's great.
But basically, we recommend people having those. There are already current some bite protocols. They're a little different, but they're available. So until then, there is stuff available. Keeping those on hand and bringing them with you is really important. But something I think a lot of people I've noticed don't necessarily think about doing is actually reading through all those bite protocols before your bit, and so you're familiar with those steps. And you know, if you happen to have a decent, extensive group of animals, especially if you're messing with non-native stuff, I think something a friend of mine who works at Henry Dorley, like the Omaha Zoo, he said at his zoo they do bite drills like as a fire drill. And that was something that we had actually not thought of, even though we're obsessive. And so now that's something we do now too, where we basically act out a bite, and then we do all of the steps that we're capable of doing so that it's more fluid. And when you do something like that, you'll notice, oh my God, this little thing could cause me a huge problem. Let's fix this little thing.
That makes so much sense. So much sense. Anyone who's ever tried anything that is like a live event, or I used to do improv comedy, various different things. And if you don't rehearse, which you can't rehearse improv, but you get to practice. But if you don't rehearse, imagine just reading a script, you know, and for a play and not rehearsing it. And then it's like, go on and enjoy the show. You might be a great actor. You might be really great chemistry, but something will be off. You're going to miss points. And if that's, you know, a dangerous, deadly snake bite, seconds could be lives, you know? So that's a great point. That's a really interesting thing, because I don't think a lot of people probably have bite drills. Even might want to. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say, for some group, a lot of people that they're only going to keep a very small amount and mostly native. That might not be as necessary, because our doctors here are very used to treating those types of bite, or they know who to reach out to. But there are a decent number of people who do keep non-native and who do have, you know, more than 10 or 15 of these snakes. So for those people, that it's really, really worthwhile to do that. It sounds silly, but I promise it's helpful, and no one has to know that you did it. Like,
you're not silly at all.
You know, I mean, sometimes people think that it's over dramatic, but honestly, if you are lying in a hospital dying, you're not going to think it's silly after that happened.
No, yeah, exactly. It seems, I mean, one thing that is we're talking about perception. It makes me think of the community around venomous keeping, and it seems with everything there's always divisive sort of groups, and there's always going to be idol worship that sort of lends itself to tribalism, whatever. There's always that, but beyond that, sort of at the core, and when it's really nice, it really seems like there's a lot of willing to cooperate with one another, communication, and like camaraderie amongst the community too. And I know we talk a lot about Facebook groups. It seems, at least from my perspective, that's probably the most engaged sort of social media with the reptile community would be Facebook. Sort of Reddit is good for, I don't know if it's good for getting answers, but it's good for asking questions. But it doesn't have that same sort of profile connection. And so you guys have mentioned some other groups. I know we wanted to talk about the anti-venom support group as well too, because you guys founded that and set that up. Can you guys explain what that is and what that does to help the community?
Yeah. So back whenever we got our own Venomous and we wanted to get anti-venom, it was a daunting process that there wasn't a lot of information out there for. And like you said, it took us about 2.5 years to get our permits and get our anti-venom. But along the way, we wrote down answers that we got from other people who helped us and from talking to the FDA and the USDA, because you need 2 permits, one to keep non-native antivenom and one to import it.
So you need a permit to keep it and a permit to import it, and they're separate permits.
Yes.
And you need a doctor to get those permits.
And so we wrote down all the answers, and once we had everything, we wrote step-by-step guides, because especially for the BBIND, which is the FDA permit that allows you to keep it, it's completely free, and it's only like, I guess, 4 pages or 5 pages now maybe of paperwork, but they ask scary questions,
things that make no sense,
like things that you've never heard of before, because this is a general permit for just any sort of research non-regulated drug, right? It's meant for research studies,
not meant for antivenom specifically.
and so the answer to half of these questions is leave it blank.
Yeah, and if you fill it out, it sends you down the wrong portal for months, dealing with bureaucratic issues that they don't even realize you're in the wrong spot.
So now we've gotten it down to where you can fill out all the paperwork in an hour, maybe 2.
And we've got people who we've helped through the process getting their permits in like 10 to 15 days, and it took us 2.5 years.
Yeah, that's amazing. I kind of love that. I love what you guys have done, but the loopholes that with the permit form, just, I love a good application where if you fill in the open spaces, that they say, no, you shouldn't have done that. And what were you doing? What were you thinking? Well, it was blank. You asked me a question, I answered it. They're like, well, this is gonna cost you.
That's very much what happens.
I love how it's not accidental. It's designed to be exclusionary and difficult, and they don't care to fix it, and they never will. So that's why I thought. And so go on. So you were saying, so you've helped people get to the group, and how many like members do you have? Like what other?
The group has over 1,000 members now. I know probably the majority are there to learn.
Yeah, we had a huge spurt after we talked at that conference in Ohio, the Venom conference. And if anyone is interested in Venom, that's a phenomenal conference to go to, and they offer virtual every year for real cheap. So,
but we've helped dozens and dozens, if not 100.
It's over 100 at this point for sure.
Because not everyone asks us questions.
10% of the group has probably actually gone through the process, and I know at least 10% of the group doesn't even keep venomous snakes, because that's in our intrigue questions. And we found a lot of people who just want to come because they want to learn, like they want to know the answer to these questions. So like when they're interacting on Facebook or TikTok or anything, it's like just a passion about knowing the right answers for reptiles, you know?
The group also serves as a platform to kind of dispel antivenom misinformation, because there's a lot of myths out there, like any old wives' tale that you've heard about reptiles.
Yeah,
there's that for antivenom as well. Like,
sure,
people will say it's exclusionarily expensive, which some are kind of expensive.
Australia,
I'm not gonna lie, but for any or most Asiatic species that people keep, Tyrant cross covers that. and you can get a full dose of Tyride Cross, either neuropolyvalent or hematopolyvalent, for around $800-$900.
And that'll last you roughly 15 years after expiration. So you're talking about 2 decades of coverage for dozens and dozens of different species of snakes for $900.
Right. And
And like
900.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have $900 like in my pocket right now, but like it's not exclusionary, especially when you're talking about keeping for 5 or 6 snakes that may cost that much each. You know, like it's it's
like,
a lot.
900 is for a lot of animals. That's how much your cage might cost. You know?
Sure. Yeah.
The 2 permits, the FDA one, the BBIND that we were talking about, that's completely free. The USDA import permit does cost $150.
But when you renew it the next year, I think they only charge you like 90.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you only have to renew every 2 years after that.
Okay.
So like it actually just starts getting a little cheaper and lasts a little longer, because we've renewed it at this point before, after having it for quite a while. And we were like, we went to go renew again for the second time, and we were like, oh, we don't have to renew? And they were like, no, actually we've decided that this lasts 2 years now when you do it the second time. Okay. So I was like, okay, hey, a win's a win.
Yeah, we'll deal with it.
It's not as expensive as everyone makes it out to be.
And the import permit you only have to have when you're planning on importing. So if you import everything you need, you can technically let the import permit go after that.
Right. Yeah, and then especially now that the support group is around, it doesn't take that long to reapply and get the new one. It won't take you an additional 2.5 years. Yeah. Well, that's amazing. So where can people find you guys? Tell me more about like the Fauna Learning Center too. I'd love to hear more about the zoo.
So let's see, we're about to reopen to the public because we added mammals to our menage all on one property. We just had a meeting with the county today. We're trying to get public bathrooms installed, and it's a big problem. But as soon as we are done with that, we can reapply for our permits, and we'll get our 3-year USDA again. And then we are already ZAA affiliated, and we would like to get inspected and get full on level accreditation, which is like a next level up. So as soon as we get those 2, we're open to the public again. We were previously open with just reptiles because that requires less permits, but mammals require a lot more. We also have primates, so that makes it a little bit, more lengthy. But people essentially are able to come to us, and we book private appointments. We don't have it to where you can just show up whenever, because we have limited parking and space.
Okay.
But it's like essentially an interactive zoo experience, but that's very safe and ethical for everyone involved, including the animals. So we have really cool stuff that we've been building and working on, like the lemurs can press a button to spray you with water in the splash zone, and like there's little bitty food portals where you can feed coatis little bitty grapes, and they can stick their little hand out, but their hand is fully extended and you can touch it or something like that. They can't scratch you because their little hand is all the way extended. And then we're gonna have like porcupine trails where you can walk down this little trail that has little rocks, so that the porcupines can't like get up on you and jump on you, but you can pet their little heads and feed them carrots and stuff like that.
How is the porcupine? Is it Ivory that was struggling?
We're picking up more medicine for him today. Actually, I just talked to my vet about an hour ago. He's having a down spurt right now, but he's still alive. He's still eating. He's still drinking. So we're grateful. They determined that it was a spinal injury. They have really like little short, robust necks. So if they do something the wrong way, they can hurt and injure their neck pretty easily. We had our enclosure inspected twice. They said there's nothing dangerous about it. We made modifications for while he's still injured, but basically they said that we have cameras in the enclosure too, but they said there's probably no way of ever knowing what he did. He's younger and spunky. She said he could have just been running around and then fell in a hole or ran into the wall or tried to jump,
Yeah.
So
it's
basically
really hard.
just pain management right now, and he should get better.
Good. Well, that's good. At least they found out, what the issue was. Sorry about all that. And he's just so cute. I had to get an update. It's really neat. I don't see any other. Do you see a lot of porcupines? You have a porcupine bubble on social media? Because I don't see any besides you guys.
They have some lovely porcupine groups for people who are interested. they have a porcupine and meerkat group, and then they have a porcupine enrichment group. They're geared towards zoos, but
Yeah.
so we do see a lot of other zoos that have porcupines. I don't see many people keeping them as more general pets, which is funny because in like ethically and safety wise, they're honestly kind of just like a larger hoofstock animal as far as requirements. They don't escape very easily, and if they're raised around people, they're very very gentle, and they have a very manageable diet, very manageable medical care. So it's kind of funny that you'll see a ton of people with like monkeys, but not a
Yeah.
porcupine.
You'll never see me with a monkey. That's so much work. Guys, thank you so much for sharing. Was there anything else you guys wanted to jump in? We got a little bit into your expertise, but we're coming up on that hour mark, and yeah, I wanted to see if anything else you wanted to cover before we say goodbye.
Just that it's been amazing over the past couple of years watching the anti-venom support group kind of grow and have this ripple effect in the community of now seeing people saying, like, dispelling misinformation outside of the group and seeing accurate information everywhere, more people getting anti-venom and just presenting an overall more responsible and educated front to like general public perception.
Yeah. Like I know from the people who are watching this that don't keep Venomous and don't plan on it, they probably only see like YouTube clips, and so it's probably created a very different perception in their mind of what the community is actually like. But there's a lot of really good, responsible, passionate people who just want to do better for the animals and for themselves, and want to keep safely so they can continue to keep and don't get that ability taken away entirely. And for anyone who is interested, basically check out the Venomous Keeper Reptile Mentorship Group. Check out the Venom interviews. Check out, now say the name so I don't say it wrong,
The Schleswig Snakebite Foundation.
Yeah. And I think those
the anti-venom support group.
Yeah, the anti-venom support group, of course, if you want anti-venom or even want to learn a little bit about it. But I think that little like bubble right there would really guide you to all the rest of that world if you're interested.
Excellent. I think those are great, and thank you so much for putting all those at the end. I'll put links to those in the description of the video when it's up on YouTube. Guys, I'll leave with a fun one, and just before we go, what kind of snake would you want to be if you had to be a snake? And we'll start with you, Zoe, and then ask you, Jackson.
Oh my god. Probably a king cobra. I feel like they have a really, really pretty naturalistic environment where they live, and the people there seem to respect snakes a lot more. You hopefully, once you're big enough, you don't have to really worry about much. But that would be what I want to be.
I'd probably have to go with the black mamba. Just that's always been my favorite, and I can hang out in Africa.
Brilliant. Well, fantastic. Guys, thank you so much again for coming on. For me, it would be the snake from the Jungle Book, who I think was a king cobra, but also he coiled up on a branch in a tree, so I think he's part retic.
Yeah, he was probably a few things. For a hybrid.
Yeah, he's what they're talking about on the news with venomous snakes mating with non-venomous and forming super predators in the trees. So look out for Ka. Or is that no? Yeah, Ka's a snake.
I think you're right.
Thank you guys so much. I'm going to stop recording and call it a night. Thanks again.